In 1979, a rural Arizona man named Leon Ritter reported a strange object hovering above the desert, then vanished that same night without a trace. His case baffled police for decades, until 40 years later when a dusty, disconnected payphone rang inside a shuttered station. The number on the caller ID Leon's, the voice barely human. The August air over northern Arizona was dry and humming with heat when Leon Ritter finished his late shift at the Red Mesa Auto Garage. He'd stayed behind longer than usual, replacing the clutch on a '72 El Camino, the radio in the corner, barely audible over the whine of power tools. By the time he packed up, the sun had long since dipped behind the jagged desert horizon, leaving behind an inky sky laced with stars. Leon wasn't a man prone to exaggeration. At 39, he was a practical type ex-military, a lover of solitude and comfortable in the silence of engines and cacti. That night, though, as he guided his weathered Ford pickup down the unlit two-lane road that wound back toward his trailer on the outskirts of Greywater, something in the sky made him slow to a crawl. It began as a flicker, then a strobe, then something undeniably present. Hovering over the low cliffs to his left was a shape he couldn't comprehend, a shimmering disc-like body pulsing with soft blue light. It moved like nothing he'd seen, no engine hum, no wind disturbance. Just there, absolutely silent. His first instinct wasn't fear, but fascination. He pulled off the road, stepped out with his jaw slack, and watched as the object hovered for a moment, then flicked away like a dropped stone in reverse, up and gone into the dark. He jumped back into his truck, fumbling for the CB radio mounted under the dashboard. "This is Ritter, Leon Ritter. Anyone copy?" His voice cracked. "I just saw something over the mesa. Real bright. Real fast. Static." Then a reply. "Leon, this is Mark. You all right? What did you see?" It was his brother working the late shift at the Highway Patrol Center in town. "I don't know. I gotta get home," Leon said. Just wanted to tell someone. "Call me when you're back." Leon didn't. At 2:14 a.m., a call was logged by Mark from Leon's home number. The voice on the line was clipped urgent. "They followed me home. It's Mark. It's outside." "What's outside?" Mark said, sitting upright in the dispatch chair. Silence. Then something like humming. Then the call cut. Mark drove out to Leon's trailer in record time, kicking dust in the glow of emergency lights. But the home was dark, the door wide open. Leon's dog was barking tied up behind the house, agitated and wide-eyed. The television buzzed with static, the coffee pot still warm. "No, Leon." Mark radioed it in. Units came. A full-scale search launched at first light. 3 miles from the house, they found Leon's truck pulled off the same stretch of road where he'd reported the lights. The keys were in the ignition. Driver's side door open. Headlights still on. Tire tracks ended abruptly, like the vehicle had glided the last few feet into place. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints, not even Leon's. It was as if he'd stepped out of time. Mark didn't sleep for the next 48 hours. He organized search teams, handed out flyers, and combed the brush. Dogs caught no scent. Helicopters saw nothing from above. The Arizona heat swallowed every sign of his brother's trail. 2 weeks later, the county filed the paperwork, missing person, presumed dead. But Mark didn't believe it. That night haunted him for the next 40 years. Because the last thing Leon had said on that call, the part he didn't tell the cops, was a whisper barely audible between static. "They said I can't leave." "Not yet." Mark Ritter kept the file labeled Leon, personal, in a locked drawer of his desk for decades. Every few years he'd open it, sift through the dog-eared pages, weather reports, soil samples, the CB call logs, Leon's last pay stub, a few Polaroids of the search site, and then shut it again as if afraid keeping it open might summon something back. Officially, the sheriff's department had long closed the case. No body. No evidence of foul play. Leon had become one of those 1970s disappearances the region was known for, right up there with hikers, prospectors, and drifters who wandered into the high desert and never returned. But to Mark, it had never sat right. Something about the call, that whisper, it clung to the inside of his mind like dust on a windshield you couldn't wipe away. In 1985, Mark retired early from the force. In private, he kept searching, clipping UFO sightings from tabloids, making trips to Sedona to speak with so-called experiencers. He was careful not to let it define him publicly. His wife June thought it was grief and guilt wrapped up in conspiracy. But Mark wasn't chasing lights. He was chasing a sound, a hum, the same one he'd heard at the end of that call. By 2019, Mark was 71 and long widowed, his days spent in the quiet rhythms of coffee crossword puzzles and the same desert walks Leon used to love. That morning, the sheriff's office buzzed his landline. It was Deputy Kim Hawthorne, a rookie when Mark was training cadets years ago. "You're not going to believe what we got," she said. "Try me. You remember the gas station off 52, the one they shut down in 91? Mark's heart thudded. "Yeah. Burned out shell now. Not anymore. Some hikers stopped there last night. Said they heard a phone ringing inside. A phone. There's no power, Mark. The payphone's still bolted to the wall in the booth." But it rang. Mark didn't speak. "There's more." The Rangers checked the call logs. The station's booth had been dead for decades, but one call was registered. Just one. Who was it to? Not to. From. The number it came from was Leon's. The landline. Mark sat back in his chair, the receiver trembling in his grip. Leon's home phone had been disconnected in 1981. The wire was physically cut during a remodel, the number recycled years ago. Did someone answer it? One of the hikers picked it up before it stopped. Said no one was on the other end. Just noise. What kind of noise? Like a he said. Low and deep. And then 3 beeps. That's all. 3 beeps, then nothing. Mark didn't sleep that night. He retrieved the Leon personal file from his drawer, laid it out across the living room floor. Maps, photographs, dates. He made a pot of coffee, then another, then circled the coordinates where the payphone sat 28 miles northeast of Leon's trailer, a zone the original search team had never combed. At sunrise, Mark drove out to the burned-out husk of the gas station, nestled in the dust like a bone half swallowed by time. It hadn't been a popular place even when it functioned, just a single pump, a creaky vending machine, and the payphone booth boxed in dusty plexiglass like a forgotten museum display. The payphone looked untouched, its surface bleached pale by decades of sun. Mark stepped inside the booth and pressed his hand against the cool metal receiver. It wasn't warm, wasn't humming. He reached into his coat and pulled out the cassette recorder he'd brought, one of Leon's old ones, from the garage. Mark pressed record and let the tape roll just in case. For hours he waited, sipping from his thermos, listening to wind and silence. Nothing came, until just before dusk. The air pressure changed first. A weight descended, though the clouds above hadn't shifted. The sky dimmed subtly, like a film overlay had been cast. And then, faint but unmistakable, the phone rang. Once, twice. Mark grabbed the receiver on the third. A burst of static. Then silence. "Hello," he rasped. More static. Then something. A clicking. Then 3 steady beeps. "Leon," he whispered. The line crackled louder now. Within the hum, a voice emerged, fragile and compressed, like a transmission buried beneath layers of noise. "Help me." Mark's knees buckled. He clung to the receiver. "Leon, say something else. Where are you?" No answer, just wind. Then another fragment. "Bring light." And the call dropped. Mark stood in the silence of the booth, the sky glowing purple around him. He pressed stop on the tape recorder, hand shaking. Inside the machine, the cassette wheel spun gently, holding what could be the only voice he'd heard from his brother in 40 years. Back at home, he played it again. The voice was unmistakably Leon's. Mark didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. The cassette tape replayed over and over on the old Panasonic boombox. Each time the voice, Leon's voice, sounded fainter, as if it were slipping further away with each replay. The words were simple, haunting. Help me. Bring light. But they didn't come across like a call from a lost traveler. It sounded distorted, synthetic, like a message forced through layers of time and space. Like a ghost caught in a wire. He called Deputy Hawthorne the next morning. "I need you to meet me out at Leon's old trailer," he said. "Bring the old county map books, the topographic ones from the 70s. She didn't ask questions. By noon, they stood in the dust-blown clearing beside the faded remains of Leon's trailer, now just a skeleton of aluminum siding and creaking steps, half-eaten by sagebrush. Wind rustled the brittle grass as Mark traced a path across the old survey maps laid out on the hood of her cruiser. "Leon called me that night in '79, Mark muttered. "Right after he saw the thing in the sky. Told me he was driving down Route 12 past Longbow Ridge when something came over the truck. You never told the sheriff that," Kim said. "I didn't want them thinking he was crazy. But now..." He looked up, eyes hollow. "Now it doesn't seem crazy at all." Kim tapped the area he referenced. If he was near Longbow Ridge and the gas station was 28 miles east, then this area in between this basin would have been right along his path. Mark nodded, and no one searched it. Too rocky. Helicopters couldn't get close, and it was ruled out as irrelevant. But what if that's where it happened? Kim hesitated. "You think he disappeared? Into something like a rift?" Mark didn't answer. He pointed to a cluster of marks scribbled in the margins of Leon's old field notebook, tiny sketches, radio frequency notes, timestamps, and one strange hand-drawn diagram of a circular shape overlaid with dots like an eye or satellite dish. They packed into her cruiser and drove east toward the basin, bumping along dirt paths, no longer on GPS. By early evening, they reached a rocky outcropping that opened into a sunken expanse of cracked earth and unnatural silence. Birds avoided the sky above it. Even the wind seemed to skirt around it. "Here," Mark said. "This is the place." Kim scanned the clearing. "What now?" He pulled out a handheld radio, Leon's old model restored. "If he's transmitting, it might be here." He clicked it on, turning the dial slowly. Most of the channels returned static, but at 104.2 MHz there was a pulse. Faint, repeating. A clicking pattern almost like Morse code. Click, pause, click, click, pause, click. "What is that?" Kim asked. "No idea, but it's rhythmic, intentional." He recorded the sound on a fresh cassette, noting the timestamp. Then a sound pierced the air, not from the radio, but from beneath the rocks. A low-frequency hum, growing louder. The ground beneath their feet trembled just slightly, like the earth inhaling. And then silence again. They both froze. "Did you feel that?" Kim asked. "Yeah, like something moved." They spent another hour in the basin, searching the ground, scanning frequencies. But nothing else happened. As night fell, they agreed to return with proper equipment, ground radar, seismic sensors, maybe even a drone. But as they returned to the cruiser, something caught Mark's eye. A small square of metal wedged between two stones, half buried. He bent down and pried it loose. It was the backplate of a two-way radio. The make and model, same as Leon's. Faded etching on the inside spelled out a serial number. Leon's. It had been broken, torn free, left behind like a breadcrumb. Back at the sheriff's office, they cross-referenced the frequency with old FAA reports. No official aircraft had ever broadcast on 154.2 MHz. But in a dusty storage box, Kim found a bizarre incident report from 1979, A commercial pilot flying near the New Mexico border had reported strange radio noise on an unused channel while seeing a bright, rotating orb in the distance. The channel 144.2 MHz. The orb described exactly like the drawing in Leon's journal. Suddenly, Mark's decades of obsession didn't feel so ungrounded. The next day, they returned to the basin with more equipment. Kim brought in a ranger named Ellis with a ground-penetrating radar unit. They scanned the basin quadrant by quadrant. Nothing turned up until they hit the edge of a rocky shelf. Then the signal spiked beneath a jagged outcrop. Ellis recalibrated, scanning again. There's a void beneath the surface here. Could be an old cave or collapsed mine shaft. Mark stared at the spot. Or it's where he went. They began excavating with shovels and picks, uncovering layers of rock and soil. A strange smell crept up ozone mixed with scorched metal. And then something shimmered beneath the dirt. It wasn't natural. They brushed it clean, a circular hatch embedded in bedrock metal fused with stone. No hinges. No keyhole. Just a small indent. Mark stared. That's the shape from his notebook. Kim took a deep breath. If this is where he disappeared. Mark reached into his pocket and retrieved Leon's old compass, just as the air around them pulsed again. The compass needle began to spin uncontrollably. And then the radio in Kim's cruiser, parked 50 feet away, screeched to life. A voice. Light is near. The voice crackled through the police cruiser's radio for only a moment, but it froze Mark and Kim in place. The sound was unmistakable, Leon's voice, unmistakably hoarse, as though strained through decades of distance and noise. The words cut the air like an ice pick. Light is near. Then static. No more voice. Just a low electrical hum that vibrated deep in their bones. Kim sprinted back to the cruiser and turned the volume up. Nothing. She grabbed the handset, calling dispatch. "Control, this is Deputy Hawthorne. Patch me through to audio records. We had a signal on the cruiser's comms. We need that feed pulled now." Mark remained at the excavation site, staring at the circular hatch. His hands trembled as he crouched and ran his fingers around its smooth, metallic edge. The metal was ice cold, humming faintly under the surface. The indent in the center, it wasn't random. It resembled a keyhole. No, not a keyhole. A fingerprint scanner, or something older. He pressed his palm against the indent. Nothing happened. But then the humming grew louder. Kim returned, radio in hand. They got it. That feed was recorded. But get this, dispatch says the call didn't originate from our system. Mark looked up. Then where? They don't know. The signal just appeared. Like it came from inside the loop. She hesitated. Like it came from underground. They stared at the hatch. Mark retrieved the broken backplate of Leon's radio. Holding it up, he aligned the serial number to the indent just in case. When he pressed the plate into the slot, the entire hatch lit faintly around its circumference. A dull glow pulsed outward, then silence again. A click echoed beneath them. The hatch didn't open, but the ground beside it gave a groan, and a small seam appeared less than an inch wide, revealing a sliver of darkness below. "That's an entrance," Kim whispered. Ellis, who had been watching nervously, stepped forward. "You really think he's down there?" Mark's answer was instant. "Yes. Or what's left of him. Or maybe more." Kim called in for a forensic team and ordered backup. "We can't go down until we know it's stable," she told Mark. "If this is a sinkhole or a buried structure, it could collapse. But if it's not just a sinkhole..." Mark countered, "Then every second we wait, we risk losing something. Or someone." They compromised. Ellis lowered a drone into the opening. The drone feed was choppy at first, but eventually stabilized. The narrow passage widened into a cavern, unnaturally smooth walls glistening with condensation. A series of faint blue lights pulsed along the floor like runway markers. The tunnel stretched deep, then curved. They followed the feed in silence. and then the drone turned a corner and froze. There, in the center of the underground corridor, was a vehicle, rust-covered, partially buried in dirt, but unmistakably a pickup truck. Leon's truck, Kim gasped. The drone hovered around the wreck license plate, VIN, even the sun-faded Ritter Auto Service decal on the side panel. It was all there, intact, undisturbed for decades. No sign of wreckage from above. It hadn't fallen, it had been placed. "Mark," Kim whispered, "this is real." And beside the truck, something else. A figure, not moving, slumped beside the passenger side door. The drone moved in closer. A man, mid-40s at most, wearing a tan work shirt, a radio still clipped to his belt. Skin, preserved almost leathery, as if the environment had frozen him in time. His eyes were closed, hands resting palms up. Mark turned pale. "That's Leon." Ellis looked over the feed, visibly shaken. "He hasn't aged a day." Back at the site, they began prepping for a controlled entry. The forensic team set up floodlights and air quality monitors. Kim briefed them, urging extreme caution. "We don't know what kind of radiation or chemicals may be in there. For all we know, it's alien tech." As the sun dipped low, casting eerie shadows across the ridge, Mark couldn't shake the feeling in his gut. If Leon had really been down there for 40 years, who or what had been speaking through his voice just yesterday? Night fell. They were ready to descend. Mark volunteered to go down first with a hazmat-suited Ellis and one of the forensic techs. Climbing down the narrow shaft was slow and claustrophobic. The hum returned the deeper they went. Lights flickered. Radios stuttered. Finally, they reached the chamber. The truck sat in silence like a monument. The figure beside it, Leon, was untouched, surrounded by perfect stillness. But something was wrong. The truck's headlights flickered briefly, and the radio on Leon's belt chirped. Mark stepped forward, and then Leon opened his eyes. Leon's eyes opened with the slow, uneasy flutter of someone roused from a deep, unnatural sleep. His pupils were dilated, nearly black, reflecting the flickering drone light in eerie pinpoints. Mark froze mid-step. Ellis gasped. The forensic tech dropped his instrument case with a sharp clatter that echoed through the cavern. Leon's head turned mechanically, like it hadn't moved in years. His gaze swept across the chamber, then locked on Mark. "Light," he rasped. His voice was dry, almost brittle. It sounded like gravel poured over glass. Yet the word was unmistakable. Mark took another cautious step forward, raising both hands. "It's me, Deputy Mark Jensen. Do you know where you are?" Leon blinked slowly, eyes twitching, as if processing language took effort. He tried to speak again, but only coughed dry, empty heaves. Mark knelt beside him, pulling out a canteen from his utility belt and offering it carefully. Leon didn't drink. He only reached out, grasping Mark's wrist with an icy, trembling hand. "I saw it," Leon whispered. "It opened." "What did?" "The sky." Ellis spoke into his shoulder mic. "Subject is alive, possibly conscious. Sending for medical evac now." Mark kept his eyes on Leon. "Where have you been? Everyone's been looking for you for 40 years. Leon's eyes darted upward toward the ceiling of the cavern. "Not here. Not gone. I was inside." Ellis looked up, puzzled. "Inside what?" Leon squeezed Mark's wrist with surprising strength. "They're still watching." The lights in the cavern dimmed, every portable floodlight flickering at once, followed by a low-frequency hum that shook the walls. The air grew colder, and the monitors on the forensic tech's belt began beeping erratically. "Something's happening," the tech muttered. "I've got electromagnetic spikes off the chart." Above them, Kim's voice cut through the radio. "Mark, you need to get out of there. Everything's spiking up here too. Radiation signal interference, it's like a solar flare but localized." Ellis grabbed the drone controls and tried to back it out of the chamber. It glitched, then froze mid-air. A sudden force slammed the device into the ground, shattering the lens. Leon's eyes went wide. Too close. They see you now. Mark stood quickly. We're pulling out. Ellis, get the evac rope ready. They began lifting Leon onto the gurney they'd brought. But the moment he was fully vertical, something shifted. The ground beneath them groaned. Hairline cracks spidered across the walls of the cavern, and a gust of pressurized air surged upward, extinguishing every light except Mark's shoulder beam. A sound echoed deep resonant, not mechanical and not natural. A voice, not human. It came from the walls themselves. Not a language, not even a tone, just presence. Everyone went still. Leon convulsed. His body tensed in violent tremors. His eyes rolled back. And then he stopped, collapsed. Mark caught him holding his limp frame. Ellis checked his vitals. He's out, unconscious but breathing. The tech was already halfway up the rope ladder yelling for backup. They hauled Leon up the shaft with painful slowness. Each inch upward felt like an eternity. As Mark emerged into the night air, he blinked hard. The stars overhead shimmered oddly, as if pulsing in rhythm with the tremors underground. Kim ran forward, helping lift Leon onto a stretcher. What happened down there? He woke up, Mark said. And something else woke up with him. The medical team began working on Leon, checking for signs of trauma, oxygen levels, dehydration. To their collective shock, his vitals were steady, almost too steady. His blood pressure, heart rate, and body temperature were nearly textbook perfect. Unnaturally so. Like he's been cryo-preserved, one paramedic muttered. But where? They loaded him into the ambulance. Kim stayed behind with Mark and Ellis, both staring down at the now quiet shaft. We need to seal that tunnel, she said. Whatever's down there, we can't let anyone else find it. Mark nodded slowly, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Leon had mentioned something. They see you now. The phone call, the coordinates, the buried truck, the camera. All of it had been a breadcrumb trail, left for them, or lured. Suddenly his own phone buzzed. No number displayed, just one word. Open. Mark stared at the screen, heart pounding, and then it went black. The stars pulsed again, and far below in the depths of the desert something stirred. The EMTs who transported Leon Ritter from the desert swore later that their equipment flickered the entire ride. Monitors glitched, GPS rerouted them in circles, and even the radio looped static, interrupted by what sounded like a distorted whisper. He opened it. They chalked it up to the stress of an unusual call, but none forgot the look on Leon's face, calm, serene, too aware. At Chola Regional Hospital, Leon was admitted under armed guard per protocol for high-profile disappearances. The hospital's 8th floor, mostly unused, was cleared for isolation. Still, despite every test scan and question, Leon remained unbothered. Alert. Silent. As if observing. Detective Mark Jensen sat in the waiting room with a cold coffee and darker thoughts. Across from him, Agent Kim Larson reviewed drone footage from the shaft. Frame-by-frame analysis showed a flicker just 1 second, where Leon's outline appeared duplicated like overlapping film exposures. Not a trick of the light. The timestamp confirmed no camera distortion. It was as if for that instant there were 2 Leons. She looked up. You see this? Mark leaned in, the video looping silently. Yeah, I don't like it. Kim paused the screen on the overlapping frame. It's like he phased. Like he was in 2 places at once. The door opened. A nurse stepped in. He's asking for you, detective. Says he'll only speak to you. Mark stood slowly. You coming? Kim hesitated, then nodded. Inside the room, Leon sat upright, staring out the window at the city lights. They don't see this place the way we do, he said before they could speak. Mark took the seat beside him. Who are they? Leon turned his head, eyes clearer than anyone expected. The ones beneath the fold. The watchers between ticks of the clock. Kim frowned. Leon, you've been missing for 40 years. Where were you? Leon didn't blink. On the other side of the membrane. Membrane, Mark asked. Reality, Leon said. We think of it as solid, but it's thin. So thin when it wants to be. He held up his hand. The fluorescent lighting flickered again. His skin seemed to shimmer momentarily, translucent bone and sinew visible beneath. Kim's heart rate spiked. What the hell? They didn't take me, Leon said. They invited me. I opened the sky. Mark pulled out the old camcorder recovered from the shaft. This was you. You filmed it. Leon nodded. But it wasn't supposed to stay behind. They don't like recordings. They said it makes the illusion brittle. Kim placed her hand on the recorder. What illusion? Leon leaned forward, tone shifting to a whisper. That this world is alone. He looked between them. That we are alone. Mark's phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. This time you opened it too. He glanced at Kim. Her phone buzzed as well. Same message. Leon tilted his head. They've seen you now. Suddenly, every screen in the hospital blinked at once. Monitors showed cascading code. TVs flipped through dead channels. A cold wind blew through sealed windows. Then everything stopped. Leon slumped back, breathing shallow. They're testing the edges. You brought attention. Nurses rushed in. Leon was stable, but his vitals showed anomalies. Waves of alpha activity across his brain, more than any coma patient on record. As if he were dreaming faster than consciousness should allow. Back in the hallway, Kim turned to Mark. We need backup. I want this floor shut down. Full lockdown. Too late, Mark muttered, staring at the camera still image of Leon's shimmered body. He never really came back. An hour later, the hospital security system recorded a silent incident, Leon's room empty. The bed undisturbed. No footage showed his exit. He was simply gone. And on the night desk left neatly beside a nurse's stethoscope was a single slip of paper. This is not the first time. The slip of paper was bagged and rushed to a forensics lab. But Mark already knew what they'd find. No fingerprints. No fibers. No trace. Just the words. This is not the first time. Kim stared at it, pale. They gathered in the temporary task force HQ, a sterile government trailer just outside Chola Regional. Night buzzed outside generators, humming static-filled radios crackling. The silence inside was thicker than the heat. We have no footage, Kim said, voice low. No exit logs. No thermal signature. But he's not in that room. He's not in the building. He's just gone. Mark paced the room, jaw tight. Disappeared. Again. Like he was never here. Technicians scanned the security system. One found a 5-second gap in the hallway footage, just long enough for Leon's room to be bypassed. Within the gap, a single image frame, a flash of impossible geometry, non-Euclidean shapes that hurt the eyes to process. One tech had to lie down after viewing it. Kim thumbed through the camcorder footage recovered from the sinkhole. It looped the same segment, Leon's original footage from 1979. Him whispering into the lens. There's a tear here, in the air. You can feel it breathe. Behind him, the sky shimmered. In the next frame, the camera dropped. Leon gone. We missed something, Kim muttered. This isn't about one man. This is a pattern. Mark stopped pacing. You think there are others? She looked at him. I think there've been others. They traced Leon's phone record, the call that rang through the ancient payphone. The metadata said it pinged from a ghost tower in Black Rock Canyon, decommissioned in 1992. No current power supply, no active service. Yet somehow the call originated from that exact GPS location. We're going, Mark said. By dawn, they drove through the twisting desert roads until the last paved stretch gave way to dirt. Hours later, they stood before the rusted skeleton of the Black Rock Relay Tower. And beneath it, partially buried in sun-baked soil, was an old metal panel, the kind used to access underground maintenance bunkers. Kim and Mark exchanged a look. They pried it open. A staircase descended into darkness. They descended with lanterns and handguns. Dust choked the air, and the narrow tunnel carried the scent of something ancient, not decay, but emptiness. At the bottom, they found a reinforced steel door. Stenciled on it, nearly erased, Ritual Test 03, Division Null. What the hell is this, Kim whispered. Mark found a control panel. Surprisingly, power still flowed faint but steady. He pressed a blinking green switch. The door hissed, groaned, then slid open. Inside was a circular room with walls covered in chalk markings, sigils neither of them could translate. At the center, bolted to the floor, was a chair, padded, harnessed, clearly built to hold someone in place. Overhead, a mirror angled at the ceiling, and on that mirror, scrawled in what appeared to be wax, "He's been through twice." Suddenly their comms went dead. A pulse ran through the floor, not sound but vibration. And then from behind a panel came a thud. Rhythmic, like something knocking. Kim raised her weapon. Mark stepped toward it. The panel burst open. Out staggered a man, shirtless, thin, his hair bleached white. His eyes dilated. Mark caught him. "Who are you?" the man croaked. "They said I could leave if I brought another." His hand shook as he passed them a crumpled photo. It was Leon Ritter, only older. But the date scrawled on the back, 2061. The man collapsed into Mark's arms, shivering despite the desert heat that radiated from the earth around them. His skin was papery, translucent in the lamplight. Kim knelt quickly beside him, checking his vitals with trembling fingers. He was alive, but barely. "Who are you?" she asked again, louder this time. The man looked up at her, glassy-eyed. I was taken from Tucson, 1983. My name's Carter." "Carter Lynch." Mark stared. "Carter Lynch. That name was in the files. You vanished in '83, a mechanic just like Leon." "I saw it," Carter whispered. "They opened the sky. I was underneath it. They made me look." The steel-walled chamber seemed to tighten around them, the sigils etched on the walls, suddenly oppressive, not decorative. Something about this place bent perception. Kim felt dizzy even while standing still. The shadows moved on their own. Mark helped Carter sit. "What do you mean, they? Who's they?" But Carter shook his head, trembling harder. "Not they. It. There's only one. It watches. Through the tear. The one Leon found." Kim turned slowly toward the mirror, that angled sheet of polished glass mounted to the ceiling. She stepped underneath it, and the moment she looked up, she staggered back. Jesus. Mark caught her before she fell. What did you see?" She couldn't explain. The mirror didn't reflect their room. Instead, it showed a vast desert plain lit by a strange violet sun, and far in the distance, impossibly tall, featureless black pillars, marching toward something. Something that bent time around itself like gravity. "I think it's still open," she muttered. Mark took Carter's photo of Leon again. The older man stared back at him, bearded, solemn. Behind him in the picture was a wall of metallic vines and a sky glowing faint green. Not Earth. It couldn't be. And yet, Kim retrieved the camcorder again, rewinding the distorted tape this time, letting it play past where they'd stopped before. After the dropped frame where Leon vanished, the camera continued recording. But the audio now carried a low, almost electronic hum, guttural and persistent. Like a signal. "I want this audio isolated and enhanced," she said. "It's not just interference." They took Carter with them, carefully navigating out of the bunker daylight, burning their eyes as they emerged. EMTs rushed in when they called it in, stunned by the man's vital signs. One paramedic said he looked 80 years old, though Carter swore he hadn't aged more than a few years. "He said he brought someone back," Mark whispered to Kim as they stood to the side. "Was it Leon?" Kim didn't answer immediately. Instead, She turned her phone toward the payphone image now cross-referenced with a dozen others across Arizona that had mysteriously activated in the past week. Only one thing connected them all. Each was installed prior to 1979. All analog, all unpowered, and all were ringing. Mark watched as Kim brought up the audio from the camcorder, the frequency now visualized on her screen. "That hum," she said. "It's not noise. It's coordinates. Or instructions. To where he asked. I think it's telling us how to go where Leon went." Back in the van, Carter lay strapped to a gurney. He stared at the ceiling, whispering he said not to come. He said, "We wouldn't survive a third crossing." Kim and Mark exchanged a look. Then her phone buzzed with a new message. No sender ID. Just a text. "Now you see, next time you follow." And attached was a photo, grainy black and white. It showed the same mirror room, but standing beneath the glass was Mark. Mark stared at the photo in disbelief. His mind raced, trying to grasp how an image of himself standing in a room he had only discovered hours earlier was sent to his phone. The timestamp read October 14th, 1990. Nearly 3 decades before today. Kim. His voice was hoarse. "This isn't possible." She looked at the image and froze. The mirror room. The same sigils. The same triangular ceiling. But what unnerved her most wasn't just Mark's presence in the photo, it was what stood behind him. A silhouette. Thin, elongated, featureless. Like a shadow detached from any light. Something used that mirror like a window, she said, whispering. But not just to look through. To reach through. Mark rubbed his temples. "You're telling me this thing's been watching us since 1990, or since before that? Or it doesn't see time the way we do?" Kim enlarged the photo. In the mirror's edge was a smear of motion, like a blur or someone shifting too fast for the shutter to catch. She enhanced the resolution as much as possible. The blur wasn't human. It had too many limbs. They needed answers fast. Carter had been transferred to a private medical facility under federal watch. Kim managed to use her credentials to get a video interview. Carter appeared on the screen, frail and sedated but lucid. "They took me for tests," he murmured. "Time doesn't move there. It loops, folds in on itself." Kim leaned in. "Carter, did you see Leon? I heard him. I think he's still alive. But he's wrong now. Changed. The thing doesn't just study us, it inhabits." Mark's face tightened. "What does that mean?" Carter looked straight into the camera. "He may come back, but he won't be Leon anymore." They ended the call both shaken. Later that night, Mark couldn't sleep. He went outside for air, staring at the stars, listening to the faint desert wind hum through the mesquite. His phone buzzed again. Another image. This one was live. A moving file. He tapped it open. It was footage of a man walking barefoot along a highway in total darkness. Only his back was visible, but the timestamp read, tomorrow, 3:42 a.m. He rushed back into the house and showed Kim. She scanned the footage, paused it, and enhanced the frames. It was Leon, older, limping eyes unfocused. His hands glowed faintly like light leaked through his skin. "Where is that?" she asked aloud. "That's not far. That's Route 9. We can reach that turnoff in under an hour." They jumped into the car, racing against time, their GPS locked onto a rest stop, marked with the precise coordinates embedded in the video's metadata. As they pulled onto the dirt shoulder of the abandoned stretch of road, their headlights caught movement. A figure, walking, just as in the video. Kim and Mark exited the car cautiously, flashlights trained ahead. "Leon," she called. The figure paused, then turned. And even before the beam hit his face, they both knew it was him. But something was different. Leon Ritter looked at them with eyes like mirrored glass. His lips moved, but no sound came out. When he stepped closer, the flashlight flickered violently, shadows writhing behind him like living things. Mark raised a hand, voice shaking. Leon, it's us. You called. We're here. Leon tilted his head slowly, and when he finally spoke, it was in a voice layered with echoes his own and something beneath it. Something ancient. I saw the shape behind the sky, he said. It taught me silence. Kim took a cautious step forward. Why now? Why return after all these years? Leon blinked. Because it followed me back. At that moment, every light source died. Flashlights, phone screens, everything went black. In the total darkness, they heard a faint metallic click from the tree line, and then the sound of a dial tone. Kim turned her phone screen back on. It flickered weakly, then displayed a final image. A map. Not of Earth. Not any Earth she recognized. It pulsed once. The third crossing begins. Mark barely had time to read the words before the screen blinked out again, leaving them in pitch-black silence. The desert, normally full of night sounds, crickets whined, rustling mesquite, had gone utterly still. The only audible noise was Leon's breath, calm, steady, and wrong. It echoed as if the air around him wasn't quite real. Kim reached blindly for Mark's arm. Back in the car, now. But Leon moved. His body jerked unnaturally, like a puppet tugged by strings. His arm raised toward the woods. A faint hum started, electronic, metallic, disharmonic, and the air vibrated, pressure building in their ears like a rising wave. Then something shimmered in the darkness. It was like the sky tore open, not visibly, but spiritually. Mark described it later as a glitch in your soul. Trees warped inward, their silhouettes bending toward an invisible source at the forest's heart. Something was arriving. Leon spoke again, but his voice was not his. Time is not yours, he said. But you've been watched for long enough. Kim stumbled backward, dragging Mark. We have to go. But Mark froze. His gaze was locked on what lay behind Leon just beyond the tree line, half-phased between here and elsewhere. A shape. Humanoid, but wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Its arms bent in the middle where they shouldn't. Eyes like burning holes. Mark whispered. That's what was behind the mirror. Leon nodded. The creature stepped forward, and with each step, reality flickered, stars reversed in the sky, gravity shifted, light bent. Every part of the world felt like it wanted to fold. Suddenly, headlights flashed from behind them. A police cruiser. Deputy Sylvia Harper burst from the vehicle, weapon drawn, face pale. Step away from them. Leon turned slowly, lifting a hand. Don't, Kim shouted, but it was too late. A brilliant beam shot from Leon's palm, no heat, no light. Just emptiness. It struck the cruiser. The engine whined, then collapsed in on itself like a dying star. Sylvia screamed as she dove behind the wheel, narrowly escaping before it vanished. Vanished, leaving a crater where metal used to be. The creature hissed. Not in pain, but in warning. Leon fell to his knees. They wanted you to come, he whispered. It's never been about me. It's always been about who answered the call. Kim's voice shook. We're just investigators. You looked, Leon rasped. You opened the door. The humming deepened into a low, thunderous note. Reality wavered like a heat mirage. And then just as suddenly as it started, it ended. Everything returned to normal. No creature, no shimmer, no Leon. Just desert wind and the sound of Sylvia's labored breath as she crouched by the wreckage of the missing cruiser. Mark stood stunned. What just happened? Kim picked up a broken mirror shard from the dirt, one of many scattered where Leon had been. In the reflection, her eyes shimmered faintly like mirrored glass. The aftermath. The incident was reported as a desert gas explosion. Federal agents sealed off the area within hours, citing unexploded ordnance from Cold War military tests. But locals spoke of lights again, blue spheres, hanging silently in the sky. People began disappearing briefly, reappearing with no memory of where they'd been. Kim quit the force a week later. Mark disappeared a month after that. His phone kept sending coordinates for nearly a year, each one leading to empty, desolate places across the country. A mailbox in Montana, an abandoned house in Florida, a dockyard in Oregon. Then the messages stopped, until 4 years later in 2023, a rookie dispatcher in Kingman, Arizona, answered a call at 2:14 a.m. Static. A hum. Then, "Tell Kim the third crossing isn't over." Caller ID Leon Ritter, from a number long since deactivated. When they traced it, it led to a payphone, buried in the same crater where Leon had last stood.